Hello, my name is Bill Backus. I'm the Preservationist for the Prince William County Office of Historic Preservation, part of the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism. Right now, I'm sitting on the porch of the historic Barnes House, now in Montclair, Virginia, but originally this house, when it was built in 1797, was located a few miles west of here in what is now Independent Hall. In the early 2000s, this building was under threat of demolition, but local preservationists who knew the history of this building wanted it preserved, and so it was mothballed, and in about 2014, it was actually driven down Route 234 and brought here to its current location and restored back to its appearance. And so what we're going to be doing now is we're going to give a brief highlight tour of the Barnes House, how it's furnished today, and why this building is so incredibly important for Prince William County history. We're downstairs in one of the two main rooms here at the Barnes House, and this room is actually furnished how it would look like in the 18-teens. This building, when it was constructed in the 1790s, was a private house for the first about 2 or 3 decades of its existence, but in the early 18-teens, the family who's living here decides to open a business, and the business that they choose to run is a tavern. Now, under Virginia law, during this time period, if you have a tavern, you have to have the ability to house travelers, to feed their horses, to feed people, and if they need to have visitors spend the night here in the Barnes House. And so one of the reasons why we think that this family makes this house a tavern is its location, right on the main east-west road in the Independent Hill area. So people going from Dumfries to Haymarket or Haymarket to Dumfries, they would be going literally right by this house. So I like to say that this is an 1800s version of a 7-Eleven or a gas station. And so fortunately for us, the family who has turned this into a tavern in this time period, they actually make an inventory of what's here. So we know exactly what's in this building for about a 2 or 3 year period. So there is about like 6 or 8 beds in this building. So basically every bedroom would have 1 or 2 beds. You'd be basically stumbling over a bed. And so we have this space furnished as that tavern in the 18-teens. And like you can see with me standing in front of the fireplace, everything in this space is reproduction. So when you come here for a tour, we encourage visitors to actually interact with the space, to try and close, to sit down, to lay in the bed, to actually get a feel for this space. So to get a feel of what it would be like to be a visitor here in 18-teens. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go across the hallway and we're going to jump 100 years into the future and talk about the Barnes family. I'm sitting in the other downstairs room here at the Barnes House, and we've actually jumped ahead 100 years into the future, into the 19-teens. When the Barnes family, the reason why this house is named the Barnes House, is living here. Now the Barnes family is an African-American family who are residing in this house from the 1870s to the 1930s. Now what's really unique about the Barnes family is actually with the father, Eppa Barnes. Eppa Barnes is born in this house in 1852 as an enslaved person. He lives the first 8-10 years of his life as an enslaved person for the family who's living in this house in the 1850s and the 1860s. After the Civil War, when he gets his freedom, he leaves this house, moves to other parts of Prince William County, other parts of Virginia, marries, has a family. And in the late 1800s, he returns back to Prince William County, back to Independent Hill, and he actually buys the house he was born into slavery in from the family who actually owned him for the first 10 years of his life. And he lives in this house for the rest of his life, raising his nearly dozen children that he has with his wife. Not only does he buy the house from the family who owned him at one point, but he also is one of the few African-American voters in Prince William County in the early 20th century after Jim Crow laws are passed to disenfranchise as many black voters as possible. So Eppa Lee lives a pretty productive, successful life. When he dies in the early 1930s, the house goes to one of his sons who's still living in the area, Bernard Barnes, who's living here with his mother and his siblings. But the family will lose this house during the Great Depression. And so after the Barnes family leaves, this building takes a couple of different uses. By the late 20th century, this is actually an office space for a salvage yard. And by the early 2000s, this building is in imminent threat of demolition. I am standing in the small back room for the Barnes house, and this is the space in which we talk and explore about not only the construction of the building historically, but also about its preservation. So you can learn about how this building was built in the 1790s, how we've done the research to figure out how we know that this was built in the 1790s, and also about its preservation and restoration here for future generations, for Prince William residents and all Virginians and all Americans. This building is open for tours on special weekends and special programs, so keep an eye out on our calendar for special programs to come out and visit the Barnes House. The Barnes House is also open by request, so you can make an appointment and have a tour of the Barnes House yourself. Please follow us on our social media accounts and keep an eye out for future programs. Thank you.